Oh, yeah!
Woohoo! Woohoo! Whoa! Primo workout, dudes!
Yeah!
Wow!
We showed those guys, huh?
Muy primo, bros!
Yeah.
Turtle Rebecca!
Max Amundo!
Acapella!
Huh?
Perestroika?
Oh.
Okay, I got it. Frere Jacques. Frere Jacques. Frere
Donnie,
Jacques.
give it up.
Hi, guys.
Yo, April! What it is? Yeah.
We brought the dinner.
Let's see.
Ah, pizza.
Yep.
Again.
Pepperoni.
Please, please. A moment to reflect. Okay, just like Sam.
Enjoy.
Ninja pizza.
Ninja pizza?
Pizza that vanished quickly without trace.
Yo, Mikey, toss me a ninja slice.
Donnie, Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Come on, throw it. Come
no.
over here.
Mike,
Here,
no.
I'm right here.
Don't.
He's in the 40. He's in the 20s.
He looks. He rolls back. He sees Pop in the end zone. He goes deep.
Aha! Touchdown. Yeah.
So, any luck finding a new place to live yet?
Well, you know, in this market, it's actually very difficult to find good subterranean housing.
Hey, we could always go back to the old sewer den.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Right, Raph? It's a little tough when about 500 members of the Foot Clan know where you live, you know?
he's right.
What? We kicked their butts. They're all in jail. Besides, we took out the shredder. So what's everybody so worried about anyway?
He's right.
No, Splinter took out the shredder.
They're both right.
Yeah. I was there, Leo, remember? Old Shred did a swan dive with a half gainer right into the back of a garbage truck. Ah!
Raphael, come away from there.
Jeez, I was just gonna...
Never forget who you are. You are ninja. You must always practice the art of invisibility. All of you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't get it. I mean, why? We saved the city. Why can't we just go out and...
Stand before me, my sons.
Well,
For 15 years, you have been confined below. Now the outside world beckons your teenage minds.
yeah.
But they could never understand. Their world can never be ours.
Well, not even pizza?
Pizza's okay.
Man, give a guy a heart attack.
Here, let me get you guys some napkins.
What for?
Take our child. We will not be here much longer.
Oh, no. You guys can stay here as long as you want.
No, we do not belong here. Above.
Yes, Master Splinter.
Yes, Master Splinter.
What?
Hey, 10 flips now. Go. Kids. Hey.
One.
Such energy is wasted. Remember, the true ninja is a master of all things, a master of his environment, a master of himself. Focus your thoughts on where we must go and leave the shredder buried.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and welcoming back one of our first guests, and that's Mike Blanchard. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Perry?
Doing pretty good. So it's been a while since we've had you on, so if you could take a few minutes and give the audience a little reminder about who you are and what you do.
All right. So I go by TFG1 Mike online. Long time ago, one of my listeners was like, what does the TFG1 stand for? And it's Transformers Generation 1. That person thought it meant the Great One. So, not exactly true. I co-created and co-run the GeekCast Radio Network of podcasts with my buddy Steve Megatron. We also have a bunch of other contributors like the Comic Concierge and Optimus Solo and other people. And I've been podcasting for 14 years this December 2022. And yeah, I've covered a whole bunch of stuff in 14 years.
Okay, great. And what we've been doing lately is I've been asking guests what kind of thing is kind of grabbing their interest. You know, nothing for podcasting or for work, but just something that is grabbing your interest in general right now for fun. It can be movies, TV, anything.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's a combination of all of it, but I'm kind of weird because I'm disabled. I've been disabled my whole life. I have cerebral palsy with other issues. I had to have brain surgery in 2019, so I'm even lucky I'm still here. But for me lately, with what has happened to me in the past year with losing my wife,
I'm sorry.
I have less interest in things. Like, all of my interests go back into podcasting for whatever we want to talk about, and I'm interested in those things. I'm still a fan of all the things I've been a fan of my whole life, but I'm not going to sit here and watch a movie just to watch a movie. I'm going to put on an episode of Forensic Files so I can fall asleep, more so than... So I'm all about the podcasting life.
Okay. All right. Well, today we are talking about the second Ninja Turtles movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Came out just a year after the original movie. And so before we jump too much into the movie, what's your association with the Turtles?
I grew up with the cartoon. 1987. I know a lot of people grew up with... I was 4 years old when the comic started, so it just isn't... So I grew up with the cartoon. I remember having the BK Your Way VHS tapes and everything else, and I love the cartoon. I saw the first film in theaters. I saw this. I was 11 years old, and I saw this in theaters. And the first movie was a little dark, as, you know, it was a combination of both kind of thing. This was more animated series fun. At least that's what they were trying to go for. And yeah, I mean, I've been a lifelong Turtles fan. I've read and covered all of the IDW publishing books on my podcast and other things and all that. I have the toys. Like I just said to you off air, I actually have more than this, but I have in my hand, people can't see this because I don't do video. I'm an audio podcaster. I have the Funko Pop Super Shredder. That was a Target exclusive, and it's basically him in that initial pose of the fists, like, I'm going to kill you at the end of the movie. So it's hilarious. It's awesome.
Okay. So you're mostly associated with the animated series. Have you read any of the original comics?
No.
Okay. All
Going to eventually, but I have not yet. No.
Okay, because I came in through the animated series as well back in, and I talked about this back when Derek and I discussed the first movie. Like that was my religion basically when I was a little kid. Was I had Turtles everything. I had the bed sheets, I had the toys, the play sets, the clothes, the Turtles underwear, all that stuff. I had all of it, and that's one of those obsessions that kind of stuck with me over the years, was the Turtles. So when they did the original movie, I saw that when I was in kindergarten. I loved that. And then second movie, as a kid, I actually loved the second movie a lot more than the first. But now that I'm older and I'm looking back on and I've understood more about the Turtles, I've gone back and I've read the original comics, reading the IDW stuff now too as well, and I saw the 2003 adaptation, which was so much closer to the original comics and such a more accurate blending of the really dark style of the comic books with the more comedic style of the animated series. So looking back on it now, I've flipped on my opinion of the movies. I now vastly prefer the original one to this one. And when I was watching this one last night, it was actually a bit of a chore to get through, to be honest.
There is only, so I told you when we were talking about setting this up and doing this, I said that I have always loved this one. I love them both. I
Mhm.
actually enjoy all three of them, but I don't want to get too far into the third. The thing is I told you I was going to look at this with a critical eye this time, and I
Mhm.
was trying to find things wrong with it. I was trying to find things that would make me not want to enjoy it as much as I always have.
Mhm.
There's only one line in the entire movie that I think, and I am a firm believer of, you look at things in the time that they were made, you don't hold them up to today's standards, but
Mhm.
people hold things up to today's standards all the damn time. Sorry. So the only line that I can pinpoint out of this entire film that people would get mad at, and rightfully so, is freaking Keno. Well, it's in the very beginning of the movie. Well, when I think about you, I'll think about something a little thinner, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh God, like Keno. And I know that's not the actor's fault. I know that's not his fault.
Mhm.
But the writing, oh man, that was the only thing. And yes, it is. This film is very goofy, and I think the reason why that is, no matter what reports are out there or whatever, as far as the facts of the film is, the first film was a mix. It was
Mhm.
a 50-50 split of what the comics were and what the cartoon. There was a little bit of the humor in there, but this is all 80s and 90s cartoon humor in this film.
Right.
And we need something like that, I think. We need that slapstick.
Mm, maybe but I don't think that changing something like the Turtles is necessarily the right way to go about it in my mind, because I think if you're going to be adapting something, I think you really have to be true to the spirit that the original was in, and
Mhm.
that was something that Eastman and Laird really hated about the original animated series, was how much they had taken it away from the dark roots, and how they had made it more slapsticky. And in fact, when you're talking about the original movie, I mean, it became the highest grossing independent film up until the Blair Witch Project, um and it was an independent movie that everybody thought was going to bomb. Like, even when
Mhm.
the producers of the animated series, when they saw the first cut of the movie, they told the director Steve Barron, they're like, "You've killed this franchise. We just started this, and now you've gone and killed it." They thought it was like the death sentence for it, and it turned out to be the complete opposite. It turned out to
Yep.
be this huge shot in the arm for the franchise, and and that first movie holds up a lot. Like, the effects hold up, the humor holds up. There's a you can see where some of the push and pull from the studio came from with regards to making it more family friendly, with like the Foot Clan are not actually ninjas now, but they're all these kind of wayward youths that the Shredder kind of
Mhm.
tricks into joining him. And you've got the producer's kid Danny in there, who's, really kind of a pain in the ass. But those things aside, the movie is very true to the comic books, and Steve
Yeah.
Barron was a huge fan of those comics. And in fact, when he met with Eastman and Laird, he brought like several specific comics. He laid them out in front, and he said, "That's the movie right there. We don't have to change a thing." And I think he was right. But eventually, he ended up getting pulled from the movie towards the end of production, because the studio wanted to make it more family friendly, whereas Barron actually wanted to make it darker than it was.
Mhm.
So when it came to this one, the studio had a lot more control. They boosted the budget of it, but they wanted to make it more like the animated series. And in fact, one of the things they did want to do was they wanted to bring in Bebop and Rocksteady from the animated series, and that was the one thing that Eastman and Laird were able to put their foot down about, and they said, "No, we do not want any of that shit in this movie." So they were
Yeah.
very. I think that I can understand the argument that we need slapsticky stuff, and yeah, I can appreciate that, but I think you got to stay true to what was established in the first movie, and also what the creators wanted to do with this.
Yeah. It does get very heavy. This movie, like, as much as I say it does have a lot of slapstick in it, which it does, 90% of it is slapstick, but there are, instead of having 2 or 3 scenes where it is so super serious, like in the first film where you have the the Shredder with the, you are now the Foot, and the opening scene of his introduction, and then the later scenes with him, and Danny raises his hand like, Master, I know where they are. I'm going to tattletale you, stupid kid. All that. In this movie, they have the scene where two different scenes where they go into their quote unquote heritage, since they do the whole TCRI, TGRI thing, this was the canister, this was this was that. So those are like Donatello being a lot more like, he was serious in the first film, but he was also Donnie and Mikey are the two slapstickiest ones. Leo and Raph are the serious ones, and I'll say that across most of the franchise. But what you had in this was Donatello like questioning where they were coming from and how they were, he wanted the answers, and we got, Splinter kind of gave them the answers, and the whole ooze thing and everything else. And so there were serious parts. It's just that it was only 10% instead of 50-50.
Yeah, I think it definitely gets overshadowed. But you brought up Donatello, and I think that's a good thing. Like, Adam Carl takes over as the voice of Donnie in this movie, replacing Corey Feldman, who did it in the first movie, because at the time, Feldman had been arrested for drug possession, I think it was. And I think Carl is a much better suited voice for Donnie as opposed to Corey Feldman. He plays Donnie more like I think Donnie should be played. Ryan Tochi and Robbie Rist are also back as Leo and Mike. But then we also have Laurie Fazo as Raph, and mostly tries to imitate what Josh Pius did in the first movie. But there are several times when I'm listening, I'm just like, this is... You're almost there. You're about like 95% of the way there, but there are those little moments when it falls short.
Yeah, as much as I appreciate Laurie's performance, he is no Josh Pius. He just isn't. And I right before we get on here, I was like, wait a minute. Who did the voice? Wait a minute. That's not like, I'm looking at all these things on Wikipedia and IMDb, and I'm like trying to like compare and contrast between the two films. I'm like, oh, that's what they did. Oh, that's what they did. Okay. Interesting. And I didn't realize they replaced Shredder.
Yeah, they had replaced him. It was James Saito.
Actor.
Right.
Yep.
James Saito did the physical performance in the first film, and they brought in Francois Chow to play him in this film. And I think they still have the same voice actor. So
they do.
Mike David McSharon. Yeah, he did it in both. Now, that was one of my problems with the first movie, was the fact that they brought in this white actor to voice this Asian character when James Saito is a Japanese American, right? He's got a good voice. He's a very good actor. So I don't know why they wouldn't just let him do his own voice. They did the same thing to I'm pretty sure they did the same thing. Yeah, Tatsu. Toshishiro Obata, who played him, did the physical performance, but then they had, again, another white guy. They bring in Michael McConaughey to do a Japanese accented English, which is just so bad. It's just so bad.
Yeah, it sucks for today's times, and it sucks for that, but it's like, those were the times. That's what they were deciding on. It sucks. It absolutely sucks that they made those decisions to do that. I look at that and I'm like, holy crap. I've got a Transformer and a Turtle right here. Even though Michael McConaughey is not, should not be doing the voice of Tatsu. He was the voice of Trax. He was the voice of many Generation 1 Transformers characters. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize it was him. I just knew the voice was not most likely what the actual actor was.
Now, I can understand it in the case of Obata's character, because I'm pretty sure he is a Japanese national. So maybe he's not, maybe his English isn't that great. I could understand it, but again, James Saito, he was born in LA, so that's why I don't understand. That's why it's weird for me for that.
Yeah. But I just, and you're right. This film, man, like, they were upping the mutants, and I know that Eastman and Laird did not want them to do that, and especially bringing in Bebop. I honestly think this film would have been better if they had found a way to not have to use the Ooze, but still had Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, Toka and Razor are okay. They're essentially, I hate to say this, but they're essentially throwaway characters. I mean, yes, they go out and master say have fun, go out and destroy the town and whatever else, but like Bebop and Rocksteady is as much of imbeciles as they are. Again, I'm gonna go to my IDW comic roots. In the IDW books, and I don't know, I need to catch up. I will be catching up on the original comics as well soon, but in the IDW books, they gave them such a story arc as far as between being humans and being mutants and whatever else. And now I know they couldn't do that, obviously, in 1991 because IDW didn't whatever. But like, he's essentially throwing away his entire quote unquote family of the Foot Clan to try to beat the Turtles with mutants. How'd that work out for you, Shredder? That didn't work out so well, did it?
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest weaknesses here is that they went back to the well of bringing back the Shredder, because again, that was something that Eastman and Laird didn't want to do. They wanted, because if you go back to those original comics, the Shredder is not a recurring adversary. He's just there like in the beginning, and then he'll pop up like once or twice again in the later books. But for the most part, they're not going up against the Shredder most of the time. Like the Foot is recurring a lot, but the Shredder is not. So so they actually wanted to adapt the Utrom storyline for the second movie, which was actually what the secret of the Ooze was supposed to be. That's why that subtitle is in there. And even up until the end, they were still working with the idea that Jordan Perry was actually a Utrom in disguise. And then at the end of the movie, they were going to reveal that the reason why TGRI has disappeared is because, you know, they've gone back to their own planet. And that was kind of the big reveal, but the producers were worried that people would be confused because Krang was based on the Utroms, and they were worried that they wouldn't understand that it was this alien scientist. They would have that people would have thought it was Krang instead, which is I can understand that, but I think going back to the Shredder was a mistake, because there's not a whole lot of there's not much that happens with the Shredder in this that makes it adds much to what we saw in the first movie. If anything, kind of detracts from the kind of menace that he had in that first movie, I think.
The only time that I found him menacing in this entire film, 2 times, is when he debuts the new razor blade helmet instead of the can opener that he had in the first film. And at the very end, when you put wrestler Kevin Nash as suit, like that's the only time I found him threatening in this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that Super Shredder design is really cool. And I did like that scene. Although one of the issues with that too is it ends so quickly too. It's just it's that Raiders of the Lost Ark problem where the Turtles aren't actually stopping the problem themselves.
No, they're letting the building come crashing down on him,
and just by luck they happen to survive. So yeah, I had a problem as from a storyteller's perspective with the way they chose to end that.
Yeah, the story in this movie it's okay. Like I said, it's got its moments of hilarity with Mikey and the combat cold cuts and fighting them at the mall and not necessarily stealing the pizza, but grabbing the pizza, leaving the cash and all that. And it's got the serious moments with the Master Splinter moments and Donatello being a little bit more existential than he was in the first film and all of that. But it was like, okay, we had what we wanted out of this whole film. We got Ninja Rap. That's what we got. The producer, and I don't know, I'm not going to sit here and put words in a producer's mouth that I don't know, but I'm just going to say that's what this movie was for. It was for 2 things, pizza and Ninja Rap. And they did it both in spades, and that wrap up of like the fight was better than the finale. The fight in the club was better than Super Shredder bringing the thing down. The only thing good about bringing the thing down is obviously the 4 shells popping up at the end, and Mikey's line. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Man, I love being a turtle. That's the only good thing about that quote unquote finale part.
Right.
And then they bookend it with coming home. Were you seen? No, Master Splinter. Practice Hada. Like,
Yeah, and that was a weird thing too, because it almost like, and this is not a fault of this movie, it's a fault of the third movie, but they almost set it up for the Turtles to be going public at the end there, but then the third movie, nothing is done with that subplot. So I thought that was also a real story issue too. And personally, I say the less said about the third one, the better.
Okay, can I just say something really quick? I'm not gonna take up too much time about that. The third movie is not good at all. However, there are moments in it that are absolutely awesome. My buddy Joe and I earlier this year did a commentary on it, and Joe's a big turtle guy, just like you and I are, and everybody else that I know, and everything else. And watching that movie again for the first time in a long time, I still like what I like, but I see its problems with the story and with the whole time travel. Like the fact that they invent pizza in the 1600s. Pizza. Oh, okay. You don't want to do frisbee. Also good. That kind of. It's but that movie. Oh man. But the second movie. You're right. They should have gone the Kerrang route, but you're also right in saying that it probably would have confused the hell out of everybody.
Right.
Because how many? Look, like I said, I was 11 in the theater, and all as I saw was. Okay, it was green in the movie, but all as I saw was, the ooze from the cartoon, this, that, and whatever else. I hadn't even read the comics back then, so, like, I wouldn't
same
even
here.
know. So, like, the only way I would have known, Krang and Utrom and, like, just Krang himself is just if you throw Pat Fraley in there as Krang on the big screen. That would have been cool, but yeah, I don't know. Overall, I still enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the other improvements that they made here was there were 2 improvements in casting. One, like I mentioned, was
Adam
Carl, and the other is Paige Turco. I think I like her April O'Neil better than Judith Hogues. I think she seems to have better chemistry with the Turtles. She seems to play off them a little bit better. She struck me a little bit more comfortable in the role, whereas Hogue, I know she had a bunch of problems on set, and she ended up kind of bashing the film after it came out as well, which ended up I know she came around. I know she, like, when they had the 20th anniversary, she was kind of hosting like a COVID rewatch party of it or something like that. But what did you think about Paige Turco?
As a kid, I'm like, wait, that's not April. And then I quickly got over it because I'm like, oh, okay, recast, whatever else. As an adult, looking back on it, I love her as April. I think she's a great April.
Yeah, I think she's much better suited. I mean, one of the problems in this one though is that April doesn't get a whole lot to do. I think she had a little bit more to work with in the first movie because of the whole Casey Jones relationship, and they were able to play off each other that. But other than that, she doesn't have a whole lot to do in this. So that was, but even still, Turco, I think, is a better fit for the character than Hogue was.
Yeah, as much as I love Judith Hogue and as much as I love her April and whatever else, and I've loved her, and like literally, I remember, and I was only 18 at the time when this happened, but in 1998 when Armageddon came out and it was revealed that Will Patton's character's wife was April O'Neil. I'm like, wait a minute, what is April O'Neil doing in a movie with Bruce Willis and asteroids? But anyway, I know Paige. She is much. she is much more the Renee Jacobs voiced animated series type of April, where she's willing to go along with most everything.
Right.
And yeah, and I had she was good in the third movie too. I just don't like what they ended up like. They're like, oh, let's cut her hair, let's do this, let's do that, and whatever. The funny thing about her as an actress is that she went on to do many, many, many other things, but I was shocked to see her as Zoe in Person of Interest. I was like, oh my God, what is April O'Neil doing in Person of Interest with Jim Caviezel and Michael Emerson? That's amazing. But she in that she plays this fixer type person, government, political scandal fixer, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And it was awesome. It was hilarious. It was great. But yeah, no, her as April, you're right. She didn't have much to do in this one. She had more to do in the third one. But what she had to do in this one worked because she was interacting with the Turtles and with Splinter. And we used the vehicle of her news report at TGRI to, get the whole introduction of Freddy, who was essentially a throwaway character. That's the thing with some of these older, more legacy films. Sometimes they're worried about plot and story and character, and otherwise they're not. Sometimes they're like, here, have this guy who's going to end up being, the whole linchpin into the foot spy thing and whatever else, and then that's it. He essentially is useless.
Yeah, that was another. I would think that was another downgrade here. Is we don't have Casey in this movie, but instead we get Keno, and this is nothing against Ernie Reyes Jr. because I thought he was great in The Rundown, but I think it's just this role is just this character is just so badly written, and he's just it's like they took. So they had the annoying kid sidekick Danny in the first movie, who I think, who I maintain was probably one of the worst things about that movie. And it's like what they did was they wanted to get rid of Casey Jones and elevate the annoying kid sidekick. And so then they bring in Ernie Reyes to do that. And he basically serves the role that a Casey Jones character would serve in this movie. And it just, it doesn't work. Like you said, the only real purpose he has there is to be their spy in the Foot Clan, which doesn't even last very long. It doesn't really have much of a payoff anyway.
Well, no, what I was saying was that Freddy, not Ernie,
oh, that one. Okay.
The Foot Clan kid who is the camera guy, he essentially has, but speaking of Keno, you're technically right, but I thought Keno is not better than Casey, but I thought Keno was a nice mix. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Danny Pennington, drop him off of whatever, fine. But with Keno, I look at that character and I'm like, okay, he's a young kid who's, studying martial arts. Okay, so we can tie that back to Turtles. Whatever. He's also he's very green. People can't see me doing the air quotes, but he's very green in his, believability of things. And you have this thing it's kind of like with Casey and Raph in the first movie. It was very antagonistic eventually until they became friends. With Keno and Raph, it's more of like, here, kid, let me explain to you why you need to do it, why you need to look at it from this point. And then, I don't know, I kind of like Keno. I think he gets a bad rap.
I mean, I think you're right. He is better than Danny. He's an improvement on that. But I think if we have to sacrifice Casey to get him, I don't like it. And this was just that.
No, that's not good.
And this was just that trend in 80s, 90s movies where producers, for some reason, they always felt that kids needed to have some sort of teen sidekick or something to be the point of view character, to be relatable to kids. And me as a kid, like, I always hated those characters, so I don't know who they were appealing to.
I'll give you a quick rundown, and I've said this on many podcasts recently. the 80s into the 90s is a timeline specifically to animation where you have things start and stop. Let's just take 83 as an example. 83, you had He-Man. 84, you had Transformers. 85, you had this, that, and the other thing. 87. So from 84 to 87, we get Transformers. From 87 to 96, we get Turtles for cartoons. So it's this whole like moving thing of evolution of characters. And hey, kids, this is done now because of whatever. Because we didn't know and we didn't care. But it was, oh crap, it's done. Move on to this. So yeah, it's this whole evolution of movement with it, and yeah, I mean, Keno is no replacement for Casey, but he works. I don't think you could have had that Bell scene and had Keno do it.
Absolutely
Casey
not.
do it. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's true. You're right. It would not have worked that way, and you'd have to do a lot of rewrites on the script to really make Casey kind of fit in this part. But just the role that character serves, being like this human ally of the Turtles who helps them out in fights, I think would have definitely been better served by Casey, especially because we would have been able to have Elias Koteas come back as well.
Yeah. I mean, he does come back in the third one.
He does come back in the third one. That was one thing that's maybe the only saving grace I have about the third movie is that they bring him back, although he doesn't really have much to do in it.
Well, he kind of does. He does and he doesn't. Casey himself, in the present, does the whole babysitting thing with Master Splinter and the Japanese guards, but they flip him and put him as one of what's his name? The not the daimyo, the other guy, the idiot, the guy with the beard. He puts him as they put him as one of the henchmen in the past. So you kind of have a younger, clean-shaven Elias Koteas. He's a character named Wit who is doing all this other stuff, and he's kind of the spy. He's essentially the spy of the movie. So he did have stuff to do. He just didn't have stuff to do as kid.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I mean. I mean, you're right. The actor had stuff to do, but the character himself didn't.
Yeah.
All right. What are the things you want to talk about here? So what did you think about Jordan Perry, David Warner's performance in this?
May the man rest in peace. I don't remember. Was it this year or last year he passed? I don't know. It was like recently that this news came out that David Warner passed away. I liked it. I thought it was interesting considering we wouldn't know him as Raish until 92 with BTAS, but considering where from 82 to 90, going from Sark to Professor Jordan Perry, essentially he's a human version of Sark in my mind, kind of thing. I liked it. I thought it was great for what scenes he was in. You had to have somebody there, and you had to have somebody that was going to be able to do the long, rambly explanations if he so needed to, or to just succinctly put it like, whatever. And I think he worked. I think his character worked for the interactions that he had in the movie.
Yeah, I think so too. And as far as his death, he passed away in July. It looks like this past July.
Yeah, such a loss.
I was going to say that he would be. Derek used to say that there's the what the hell is this guy doing in this movie part you have, and I was almost going to say that about David Warner in this because but then I'm looking at his filmography and he's done so much other stuff, so it's hard to really pin it on him.
Yeah. If I'm gonna pin that on anybody, let me look at the cast here. Honestly, as much as it works, Kevin Nash. Like, who the hell would have ever thought of WWF and TMNT crossovers? Of course, we're 31 years later after this film, and Mattel has done TMNT, Mattel or whoever owns whatever, like they've done WWE TMNT crossover action figures now. They've done them over the last couple of years. So I guess it makes sense. But I mean, yeah, Kevin Nash would get my award for that one.
Yeah, I'm wondering. It's funny because I'm looking at him in this, and then I just remember that he played the Russian in The Punisher in 2004.
Punisher. Yep.
And looks like he hasn't aged a day in that time frame too.
The man doesn't age. He's forever young.
But one thing when you said that, it made me think, because this was before the time when wrestlers making the jumps to movies was very common.
Right.
Because, I mean, this was basically about the same time as you had the Hulk Hogan movies coming out, right?
Oh, you want to talk about a really, really bad film? No, I don't think this is something we can cover on this podcast, but I believe it was 1991. I'd have to look it up, but Hulk Hogan in Suburban Commando.
Yeah, 1991. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, look, I love the Hulk. I've loved the Hulk since I was a kid. But man, that movie. Yeah, wrestlers are not known at all for their I don't know because everyone's going to hear me say wrestlers are not really known back then for their movie crossovers, whereas you had Andre the Giant in The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was like it's not like today where, you might see Randy Orton in like 12 rounds 2 or the Marine 17 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's increased over the last 30 years that wrestlers have also become movie people.
Well, yeah, I mentioned this before, but I was very against the idea of like The Rock and a lot of other wrestlers, seeing them in movies because I kept getting flashbacks to Suburban Commando. Like that movie definitely poisoned the well, I think, a lot.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
One of the things I noticed too about this movie is it's weird. It's that the fight scenes, or the budget is bigger in this movie than the first one. Yep. But it's hard to. I'm wondering where a lot of that money goes to, because the effects and the suits, they seem less sophisticated than they did in the first one. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, the suits seem like they're the same, if not a little bit different. Now, I do know that Henson and Creature Shop did do the suits for this one.
Mm-hmm.
They did not do the suits for the third one, as far as I remember. But I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand where that budget went. $25 million. Like, I guess maybe they went into Toka and Razor suits because they're so much bigger than the Turtles. I couldn't tell you where. Like, I'm trying to think of that now as I watched the movie right before we did this, and I'm like, wait, where? Because I know that Razor helmet is not $25 million. I know getting Vanilla Ice at that time probably cost, but it didn't cost $25 million. I guess it's an overall, like, spread it everywhere kind of thing. I guess,
yeah. Like, maybe also the sets, because they use that the abandoned subway station too.
Oh yes.
Which again, that's another thing I like about this is I like their new lair. I like that they did that. And they brought that back a lot. Like they use that in the third movie. They use that in the live action TV show. And they've had like a version of it in other versions of the Turtles as well. That's kind of like modeled after it. So that's had some staying power, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think that outside of this second film, the coolest version, visually, not comic book, that was used was when they did the 2003 animated series, and that series is. You're right. It's very much more comic booky, which is great. I love that series. I do. But the whole layer that they have there, which is technically a sewer layer, not a subway, but like I think it's if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm in the process of actually rewatching that series because oh my god, next year is 30 years or 20 years since that series. Yeah, next year is the 20th anniversary of that series. I'm rewatching it to catch myself up on it and things like that. But yeah, the subway layer was always so cool. It was always so great, and it's just so fun. Like again, I remember when I think is it in late season 4, beginning of season, whenever it was that the Finch and Person of Interest found the IRT substation where they have to have it's in like the 5th season where they have to have the computer all in the train and everything else, and I was like, oh hey, that's like the Turtles subway station. And yeah, it was so that set is amazing. I would love to see if that I don't think it's still in existence, but as an 11-year-old seeing that on the screen, I was like, ooh, I'd like to live there. Come on, Mom, let's go live in the subway.
So yeah, I thought it was the actual place, but it's just based on the decommissioned City Hall station. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't completely abandoned like in the movie, but there's still trains that pass through there. But yeah, that's, and you know, a lot of interesting history behind that stuff too. So that's a cool thing to pull in there. Although it seems kind of weird that it's so close to the surface there that they just find it so easily. But that aside,
yeah.
Now the fight scenes, much talking about stuff that's not as well done in this one is the fight scenes in this one compared to the first one, and part of the reason is because of the suits, because the costumes in this one had very, very small eye slits for the actors to see out of, and they were like a good 3 inches away from their face instead of being flush. So if you watch closely, you'll see that a lot of the foot actors are just kind of standing around waiting to be hit. And if you watch closely, the Turtles would throw out random punches and kicks, and then a foot soldier would just bend and jump in front of them so they could be hit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again, I don't know what was going on with the production back then, but whoever's going to be, I mean, obviously the suits have to look like the Turtles. They have to be larger than the person in them.
Right.
But it's been going around for years now, but there's that meme of Donatello's mouth where his mouth is open and you see the guy, the actual person's face inside of his mouth and all that. Like, you would think that they would have found a way then, and I'm hoping, now 30 years later, maybe they can find a way to have the suit actors not as off their game, or not as not have them as just off of it as what they were with these designs, man. Like, yeah, those Foot Clan members are like, are you gonna punch me or am I just gonna fall down?
Yeah. And some of those, again, this is where the slapsticky stuff came in. Well, also too, that's interesting is the only one who actually uses his weapon in in fighting is Donnie. Like everybody else, they like never use their weapons at all. Yeah. And that was something Derek and I had pointed out in the first one, how, it shows how the cartoon's influence was creeping in, because you have Leo who has these two swords, but he can never actually use them to hit anybody. Or then Raph with the sais, and he can't actually ever use them to stab anybody, which in the comics, they had no problem doing that. So their weapons seemed almost a little bit pointless in this. In this movie, it takes it a step further to the point that Michelangelo almost never uses nunchucks at all. I don't think I can't even recall really seeing Raph's sais after that first opening scene in the shopping mall.
In the shopping mall, yeah, that is the only time that Raph uses the sais. And Mikey, I liked the I like the compact cold cuts joke, because I'm like, wait a minute,
yeah, that fits Mikey's character. That I can understand. A lot of the slapstick stuff that Mikey does, I think, fits totally with his character.
Yeah, but I'm like, wait a minute, don't you have actual nunchucks? What happened to them? And I know, oh my god, at least back then over in the UK, oh my god, nunchucks, oh my god, the bands and the all that and whatever. But it's just one of those things where, yeah, like Leo uses his swords, except he uses his swords as a crutch to do other moves. Like there's one point where he throws them up in the ceiling. Now you see him, now you don't. Like,
right.
Okay. Interesting. Funny.
Which is kind of I feel like that's kind of a perfect analogy for the weapons in this movie in general. Now you see them, now you don't, and then they never see him again. So yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. Also, that opening scene, for the most part, I did think some of it was a little bit too over the top with the slapsticky stuff. Like, and also I couldn't understand why the crook takes his mask off to talk to Keno.
I know, right?
And I was thinking, wait, you're robbing this place. You're wearing the mask is explicitly for a situation when someone might see you. Why are you taking it off now?
And it's so stupid that he takes it off because it's nothing but a pair of women's, lingerie or pantyhose.
Yeah.
It's so I can see his face.
Yeah.
I can see his face before he removes the mask. That's just dumb. Don't it's not like one of the Foot, because again, the beginning crooks were not Foot Clan. They were just crooks, and yeah, that was just so silly and yeah. But the fights, the weapons, I do love. And again, Donnie and Mikey are the goofier two. I love in the mall scene where he finds the little, you push it comes the little stand-up thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And he becomes like, I thought that was ingenious. I thought that was really fun.
I liked when he was playing with it, but I thought I thought it felt a little bit weird for the crook in the middle of the fighting to just be like, oh, is this a stand-up of the guy? So I thought that was it didn't track with me. It was, even though I do remember as a kid loving that. Also, I think
it's the sound effect. I think that's the thing with that. It's that I don't have anything that I can make a creaking noise with because I'm not a voice actor, but it's that creaking. So that's what Donnie heard. He saw it and he heard it, and then he plays with it a little bit, and then he becomes it, and then you hear the creaking. So it kind of got that middle crook's attention. And for some odd reason, that middle crook is just apparently doesn't have anything more than a kindergartner's education, where he's just like standing there, like you're saying, with all the other fighting going around. I'm like, what the hell? But it was still a fun scene.
I also had trouble understanding where exactly the time frame of this happens, because it seems like it takes place very shortly after the first movie, because you've got the remnants of the Foot Clan coming back and saying like, okay, this was our fallback place after everybody else got picked up. And then, Shredder's coming out of the junkyard, obviously very, very soon after he had gotten in there. But April's got a whole new apartment and was working for a new studio and everything.
No, she's still at Channel 3, isn't she?
I think it's a different one, because it's, well, at least the design of it is different or something.
Yeah, the design of it is different, but I think she is still at Channel 3. I could have sworn I saw Channel 3 because I was looking for that. I was looking to see if they were going to change it from Channel 3 to Channel 6 to be like the animated series. Yeah, I want to say it just because Shredder didn't die, even though we were led to believe that he did. Maybe it's been a month or so. I don't want to say anything longer than that, because with April's new apartment, think about it. She had to get a new apartment, the shop, all that. So she would have had to get a brand new apartment, and now she's having to also, house these 5 mutants at the same time. That's why I love her. The rat is the cleanest one. So I think the timeline I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna John Wick it, or it's not like the next day or anything, but it's at least maybe a month, if not a month and a half since the first film.
Yeah, the timing is weird on it.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I remember thinking that it didn't really make sense, the timeline.
Yeah.
Also, the Vanilla Ice. I mean, it is wild to me to think now that there was a time when people thought Vanilla Ice was talented. There was a time when this guy was popular. It is, and I was alive. I was a kid at the time, but I was alive when that happened. It just blows my mind that was a thing, that Vanilla Ice was a nationwide sensation.
Well, again, music was changing back then, and all of that, and you got Ice Ice Baby, and then you got Ninja Rap, and you got a bunch of other things that he's done, and whatever else. And in that time, it was just, that's the thing. Like back then, in the late '80s, early '90s, we were still in the age of the mega famous one hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at bands today, and I don't know most of today's music, but like, what is it, BTS or whatever. Just take whatever band you want, like an actual band, or I don't want to say Taylor Swift, because she is a hell of a lot more talented than he ever was, but like, you take something from today and it's more like, oh, this is a band and they have like 17 hits. Back then it was like, here's a white guy, he can sort of rap, sort of, and oh my God, this is going to blow up overnight. And it did. And of course, 31 years ago, we didn't have the internet. 31 years later, we do, and it's a whole different thing, whatever else. I remember having the cassette album that Ice Ice Baby was on.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember liking it a little bit. Of course, I was like, somewhere like 10 or 11, whatever it was. And then he shows up in this. And I got to give the guy credit, because I've seen other things since then. I've seen his his renovation, whatever he's doing now. I've seen things he does, but I've seen things on various toy shows where he's like, yeah, man, he was a huge Turtles fan. So it wasn't like, so, I mean, I get your point. You are not wrong in saying what you said. It's just that I think it's a misconceived notion, the fact of just plugging him in, or someone like, I can see if they just plugged in Run DMC or Sir Mix-a-Lot just to, do something like that where they weren't fans, but to find out years later that he had been a lifelong fan and that was kind of a dream of his, and what are the song you gonna use? I mean, he made the song for the movie. Like, right. There is, like, you cannot rewrite, and if you rewrite the film, you take that scene out, then there's no point in having a song obviously there. But if you try to rewrite it for a difference, it doesn't work. Because then the whole movie falls apart at the end with that bookend scene with where like I said earlier, with, Master, so I don't know. I guess I'm an apologist around here these days.
Yeah, I can't. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I can't put it together. I can't justify that scene at all. It's just, when they go up on stage and they start singing with them, it's just. Yeah. I understand. You've got a big act. You got a big name celebrity who's a fan of this, and you want to let him do something with that. I get that, but yeah. Doesn't mean you devote a whole segment of the finale to his terrible turtle song. So yeah, I could not get behind that. But overall, I think that there are some good things in it. There are some, like I said, I do like, Adam Carl. I do like Paige Turco coming in. I love that the new lair, but I feel like a lot of one of the things I really loved, and I just re-listened to the episode Derek and I did on the first movie last night. And one of the things I loved about that first movie is, first, the fact that it holds up so well. And, the effects still look great in it. The suits still look amazing. The action could be sped up a little bit, but that's probably the one thing that doesn't hold up as well as like, the whole thing with Danny. But one of the things I also realized about it is that there is so much heart given to those performances. Like those, they really feel like real characters. They really feel like real brothers. They feel like a real family. I mean, even that scene when Splinter talks to Raph, when Raph comes home after fighting Casey, and he has this heart to heart with Raph, and it's emotional. Or when he's when he's talking to Danny and he's saying that all fathers care for their sons. Like it's pretty emotional scenes coming from this an animatronic rat. But they really sell it in that movie. In this movie, we get kind of a hint at that when Splinter and Don talk, like you mentioned, and Don's got that little bit of a moment there, but that's more of an outlier than the norm in this movie.
Yeah, that's more of like, we need to figure out how to walk on this balance beam, but we're not going to figure out how to walk on this balance beam. We're just not, because this movie is not, it's not balanced between the slapstick funny side and the serious side, because Shredder is not a serious threat in this movie.
No.
He just isn't, and it sucks. I mean, and like you said earlier about the comics, that in the original Mirage comics he's not always there, and that's fine. But like, I would love to see. And how far are you into the IDW books? Do you know off the top of your head?
I've gotten up to the first 2 volumes of the new run. So after the City at War storyline, and then after they'd relaunched the trades after that. So it's when they've got the Mutant stuff.
Yeah. So okay. So you've read the whole 100 issues of the major first part of the run. So you know everything. You look at all of that and tell me that each of those arcs would not make a great animated film.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, it would be amazing if they adapted those. But I think back in 1990 and 1991, like we've already said about the original film, it was a mix of leaning more towards the serious and whatever else. And then with 91, it was like, oh, let's go animated. And it is what it is. But it's like, maybe this didn't quite work out so well. And I think you could have had, like, they could have, with this, like you were mentioning with the Secret of the Ooze thing, about the meaning of the Utroms, they could have done something, like, instead of doing, as much as for comedy's sake, I love the, like, when they're, after the ninja rap was born and all that, they're like, oh, Mikey, where'd you go? And they can't find Mikey. They have to go back into I'm like, as much as I love that, you could have put something there that had you need to go. Okay, I just want to okay. You could have had something there where you had an Utrom tease at the end of the film, where the third film with the time travel could have been an Utrom thing. It did not have to be what it was. So yeah, it's the 90s. You can't explain the 90s anything to anybody. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I'm thinking about this overall, the movies that we've gotten of the Turtles. And now I haven't seen the Rise of the Teenage...
okay.
The Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the newer animated movie. But I've seen all the other ones. And... Mutant Mayhem. I don't know what that one is. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
That's was that a video game? I thought that was anyway.
That's the one that Seth Rogen's working on. Okay, that's 2023. Okay.
That's not okay. Good.
Which sounds pretty interesting, because Rogen is, he's a huge comic book fan. He's a huge Turtles fan, and he's done some really good stuff as a producer, like the Preacher TV series and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that. But out of the movies that we've gotten so far, we've gotten the the 5 live action ones, these ones and the Michael Bay ones. We got the TMNT animated one in 2007, and then Turtles Forever and the Batman versus TMNT one. Honestly, I'm just going to focus on the theatrical ones, but out of the theatrical movies, I think basically the 2007 animated one and the first one are the only ones I could really strongly recommend.
Yeah.
This one, I'd say if you like those, and if you're into the Turtles, then I would say, try the second one, try Secret of the Ooze. But if I was talking to someone like Derek, he loved the original one, but I don't think he would have liked it enough to find much about the sequel to enjoy.
Yeah, he would want more of the darkness to come back with the sequel. He would want more of that TCRI storyline to be more present. I've seen the Rise animated film, and you don't... Originally, I thought, oh, great, I have to watch the whole Rise of the TMNT animated series that Nickelodeon has.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. You don't have to. It's pretty much... It takes the name, it takes the characters, it puts them in a situation, and it's fine. I don't like the animation style of the Rise of the TMNT.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one thing I don't like, but the movie was good. I did not like the first Michael Bay produced movie, but I liked Out of the Shadows, the second one. I did not like
either one.
Really?
I hated them both. I despised them both. And I was hoping to like the second one because because they had Steve Amell come in to play Casey Jones, and I was really looking forward to that. Even he disappointed me in that movie. Yeah, I hated them both. It was awful.
Yeah, yeah, so when it comes to the movie, the 2007 movie, I need to revisit. I remember it, and I don't know. It's one of those things where I just don't remember that much, and yeah. So yeah, honestly, I would say the first 90 film. If people want a live action version of the animated series from '87, I would say watch this Secret of the Ooze. And the funny thing about the cartoon really quickly is I recently, at the end of last year at Christmas time, I spent way too much money on myself because the dang thing is out of print now. But I finally have the complete series Turtle Van DVD set of the animated series. And I started watching it, and it was like season 2 or the end of season 2 or the beginning of season 3 where they start doing otherworldly things. And I'm like, I do not remember this show that well. Like, I didn't watch it all. I watched like the first, technically season 1 is only the first 5 episodes, but I watched most of season 2 and 3, and like, I don't remember. Like, I was like, it was like, I forget. It's in season 3 where they introduced like the frogs and all that. And I'm like, I don't remember this at all. I'm like, wow, this show went way out there before I remember when it actually did, when I thought it did. So
yeah, they did a lot of weird things on that show. I haven't rewatched it in years, but I do remember that stuff. That because I'd watch those episodes endlessly when I was a kid, and when they were in syndication and everything like that. But yeah, I think that's about as good a note to end on. Is that I think it's, if you like that original cartoon, then this movie has that nostalgic feel. But if you're not a fan of that cartoon, I think it's I would stick with the first one, and I would also recommend the 2007 one. That is, I know it got a bad rap, but I thought it was really strong. I thought it was really well done. And some big names in it. You had Chris Evans as Casey Jones. You had Sarah Michelle Gellar as April. You had Zhang Ziyi as Karai, and Lawrence Fishburne doing the narration. Mako playing Splinter. I think that was his last role, actually. But yeah, it was.
I'm trying to remember who did Splinter in the 2012 series. I don't remember.
Well, I'm not sure. I never saw the. Are you talking about the TV series? I don't know. I never saw that one.
You should check that one out. It's pretty good. It's not as bad as what everyone says it is.
I've heard good things about Rise, but I haven't seen it yet. And I am meaning to check out that other one. I think I'm going to wait until my kids are a little bit older, and then because they'll be able to appreciate it. I'm setting stuff up for them now, so I've got the original series for them, and I've got the 2003 series for them. So when they get a little bit older and they're able to start being able to sit down and appreciate TV, then I think I'll show it to them and see what they think.
Yeah, I think you're right about that being Mako's last performance. In the 2012 series, it is Hoon Lee who does the voice of Splinter in that show, and he was really, really good as Splinter. So,
okay, all right. So, that brings about the end to this. Michael, can you tell people where they can find you?
I am on Twitter at TFG1Mike. You can also find all of our content on GeekCastRadio.com.
Okay, well, thanks for coming back again. It was fun talking about the Secret of the Ooze with you. And as for us, superherocine.com is the website, Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I am also on Hive now, because Elon Musk is slowly destroying Twitter. So I'm on Hive under Per Constantine, PER Constantine. I'm posting updates to there about the podcast as well. So I don't know if there's a way to create two accounts on there yet. So, but I'm on there as well on Hive as PER Constantine. And also we got the Patreon page, patreon.com/supercinemapod. Subscribe to that for as little as $1 a month. You get these episodes a week in advance. And you also get the companion podcast where we talk about the comic books and graphic novels and all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. If you enjoy the Superhero Cinephiles, then you'll also love my companion podcast, the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. All my Patreon subscribers get access to this exclusive podcast where I review superhero comics and graphic novels. Not sure what comics you want to read next or what you should dive into? I've got you covered on that. I'll be doing reviews, recommendations, and also talking to you about useful entry points if you're interested in reading some comics but don't know where you should start. Plus, you'll get access to all episodes of the main show a week before everyone else. On all of this for as little as just $1 a month. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/supercinemapod and you can sign up at any subscription amount to get started. Thanks so much for your support, and please don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.